This episode, the Eureka Stockade from the Iron and Inkwell series is brought to you by Vizkard Studio.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through sources and research to pull out the really key nuggets of knowledge for you.
That's what we do.
And today, we are plunging into, well, one of Australia's most pivotal moments, I think.
Yeah.
The Eureka Stockade, Ballarat, 1854.
It's definitely pivotal. Complex, too.
Right. It's not just a date on a calendar. It's this really vibrant story. Lots of human experiences, political tension, and honestly, surprising consequences that shape the nation.
Absolutely. It goes far beyond what you might read in a quick summary.
So for this deep dive, we've got a mix of things. Official history, sure, but also contemporary memoirs. There's this first-hand account from an insurgent, Raffaello Carboni.
A fascinating perspective.
And even a lady's travelogue from around that time. Our mission really is to unearth those hidden stories, understand the intense pressures building up, and show you the lasting impact.
Exactly. And what you'll see is how this seemingly local conflict on the Victorian goldfields became this crucible for big ideas.
Ideas like democracy.
Fairness.
Yeah, democracy, fairness, self-governance. It pulled in people from everywhere, all corners of the globe. We're going to pull out the most important insights from all these sources for you.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack Ballarat in 1854. You've got these incredibly rich gold finds, places like Canadian Gully, the jeweler's shop.
Legendary spots. Drew thousands, all dreaming of striking it rich.
But beneath that glittering surface, there's this system, the licensing system. And it's causing huge problems, huge discontent.
Yeah, the miner's license, that was the real flashpoint. It cost 30 shillings a month.
Which was a lot back then.
Oh, a significant sum. Could be a week's wages, easily, for many diggers. Or you could pay £2 for 3 months, £4 for 6, £8 for 12. But, it wasn't just the fee itself.
It was how they collected it.
Exactly. The enforcement was brutal. Our sources talk about these aggressive digger hunts, mounted officials conducting inspections sometimes multiple times a month.
I read one source mention 3 times in October alone.
That's right. And it was treated, believe it or not, as a great sport, like an English fox hunt. And crucially, the officials got a 50% commission on any fines they imposed.
50%? Wow. So there's a direct incentive to fine people.
A massive incentive. And think about it from the miner's perspective. You're often working in mud, you're wet.
Yeah, tough conditions.
And you have to carry this paper license on you constantly. If you didn't have it right there, bang, arrested, fined, or worse. Some accounts mention being chained to trees and logs overnight.
That's degrading. And you mentioned Carboni. He had a story about this.
Yeah, Raffaello Carboni. He arrives, starts setting up his tent, hasn't even had a chance to get the license yet, and he's dragged off.
Seriously.
Fined £2, then forced to buy a 30-shilling license for the last 2 days of the month.
That's just infuriating. You can see how that builds resentment. It's not just unfair tax, it's about dignity.
Exactly. And that personal grievance connects to wider anger. There was this incident with Father Smith's servant, Johannes Gregorius.
What happened there?
He was Armenian, disabled, and actually exempt from the license. But he gets arrested, roughed up by police, falsely accused of evasion.
Despite being exempt.
Yes. And then, adding insult to injury, he's fined £5 for supposedly assaulting a constable, even though witness backed him up. It just showed how arbitrary and unjust the system felt.
So the anger is just simmering, and then it boils over.
It does. October 17th, 1854. A huge mob, thousands strong, burns down the Eureka Hotel.
Wait, the hotel.
Its owner, James Bentley, had just been acquitted in a really controversial case involving the death of a miner named James Scobie. The diggers felt justice wasn't done.
And Carboni saw this too.
He describes the resident commissioner, Reed, trying to calm the crowd, getting pelted with an egg. Then the hotel goes up in flames. Police were powerless. It was a total breakdown of order.
This wasn't the absolute start of protests, though, was it? There were earlier attempts.
No, you're right. There were earlier efforts using moral force. Back in August 1851 at Hiscox Gully, you had maybe 40, 50 miners protesting regulations. Some even then were talking about taking up arms.
And the Red Ribbon Movement.
That was 1853. The Bendigo Petition, the Red Ribbon Movement, 10,000 diggers mobilized. They actually managed to, as one source charmingly put it, inspire with better sense the red tape.
Meaning they got some changes made?
They did influence officials, got some regulations revised, but the license fee issue kept coming back, often with harsher penalties.
So fast forward to November 1854. Things are reaching ahead.
Definitely. November 11th, a massive meeting at Bakery Hill. over 10,000 people.
10,000, that's huge.
Huge. And they formed the Ballarat Reform League. This wasn't just local grumbling anymore. They were inspired by the Chartist movement back in London.
The working class movement.
Exactly. They adopted 5 of the Chartists' 6 main demands. Things like manhood suffrage, votes for all adult men, not just property owners, and no property qualification for members of parliament.
So it's about political rights now, not just the license fee.
Fundamentally, their slogan became, "Taxation without representation is tyranny." It was a direct challenge to the colonial government's legitimacy.
And then they decide on direct action.
They do. November 29th, another huge monster meeting. The League pledges to abolish the license fee by publicly burning their licenses.
A very symbolic act.
Very. And it's interesting, the Reverend Mr. Downing actually proposed they shouldn't burn the licenses. He was heard respectfully, but his idea failed. The diggers were committed.
You can feel the tension ratcheting up. Carboni writes about this too, doesn't he?
He does. The very next day, November 30th, after the license burning, he writes this letter. He hears the usual Irish cry, meaning a commotion, people running to gravel pits.
Right.
The traps are out for licenses and playing hell with the diggers. Traps meaning the police, the inspectors.
Right.
And Carboni ends his letter, "I must go and see what's up." You can almost feel the ground shifting underfoot.
Okay, so November 30th, the day after the license burning, Peter Lalor steps up.
He does. Sources describe him climbing onto a stump, proclaiming liberty, calling for volunteers. Hundreds respond.
And he makes that promise?
Yes, a really defining moment. He solemnly promised to shoot the first man who took any property from another except arms and ammunition, making it clear this is about rights, not just chaos.
Then comes the stockade itself. What exactly was it? Because accounts seem to differ.
They really do. It's fascinating. Lalor himself later called it a flimsy, useless construction altogether without the slightest pretension to military engineering, just an enclosure to keep our own men together.
So just a basic barrier.
According to Lalor. But other accounts suggest it was meant as a proper fortress. They say Frederick Verne, who supposedly had military learning, oversaw the construction.
So flimsy enclosure or makeshift fortress, what does that tell us?
Well, it probably reflects the different perspectives, maybe the confusion of the moment, or even later attempts to shape the narrative. Was it a desperate stand or a planned defense?
And its location wasn't ideal either, apparently.
No, the historian Withers called the location appalling from a defensive point of view. It was on a gentle slope, easily overlooked from higher ground. Not great military thinking, if that was the intent.
It really highlights the conflicting memories. And not everyone was fully committed, right? There were warnings, desertions.
That's true. The night before the battle, Father Smith warned his Catholic congregation against useless bloodshed, urging them to attend Mass instead.
Did people leave?
Yes, desertions happened. The initial force, maybe 700, dwindled significantly. Some apparently turned back when rumors spread that Irish independence had crept into the movement. Shows the mix of motives there.
So the morning of December 3rd, 1854, the attack comes.
Around 300 colonial forces advance. A single shot rings out from an insurgent sentry. A warning.
And the fight itself, how long did it last?
It was incredibly short, sharp, decisive, probably not more than a quarter of an hour.
15 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And who fired first? Do we know?
Still debated. Some say a barber inside the stockade shot an officer who fell. Others say the soldiers fired first. One source kind of shrugs it off, saying it's immaterial in as much as both sides were there under arms.
But it wasn't a complete walkover for the troops initially. There was resistance.
There was. John Lynch, one of Lalor's captains, mentions some sharpshooting. Another account says the rebels offered stiff resistance for at least 10 minutes. The main regiment, the 40th, apparently even wavered for a moment.
So the diggers fought back, even if many just had pikes.
Yes, armed often with basic pikes against trained soldiers with bayonets and firearms. But eventually the soldiers got inside, and then it became brutal. Bayoneting diggers.
A terrible scene.
Horrific. Sources tell stories of women ran forward and threw themselves over the injured to prevent further indiscriminate killing.
Good heavens. Even the officers tried to stop it.
Captain Pasley, second in command of the troops, apparently threatened to shoot anyone involved in murdering prisoners. Shows how bad it got. Afterwards, about 120 rebels, some wounded, were rounded up.
And marched off to the government camp.
Yes, kept in what's described as an overcrowded lockup.
And Carboni witnessed the immediate aftermath inside the stockade.
He did. And his description is just harrowing. The accursed troopers dismounted and pounced on firebrands and deliberately set in a blaze all the tents round about.
Burning the tents, with he wounded possibly inside.
That's what he implies. The howling and yelling was horrible. The wounded are now burnt to death. He saw troopers setting fire to a store. He himself got taken prisoner briefly, but was released when Captain Thomas confirmed he wasn't actually in the stockade during the fight.
His prison account sounds terrible, too.
Truly awful. He describes being crammed to suffocation in cells, infested with fleas, lice, horse stealers, and low thieves. The stench, the heat, people becoming delirious.
Yes, dreadful conditions.
Thankfully, he says their growls and howling eventually reached Commissioner Reed, and they were moved to a slightly better spacious room, but the initial treatment was barbaric.
So the battle's over, the stockade is destroyed. What happens next? The immediate consequences.
Well, martial law is proclaimed. There are reports of unprovoked shots being fired from the government camp towards the diggings, people getting hurt, killed women, children, men. A really tense, brutal atmosphere.
But public opinion starts to turn.
Dramatically. In Ballarat itself, when the authorities call for special constables to help keep order, only one man steps forward.
Only one out of the whole town.
Just one. It shows a huge lack of support for the government's actions. The public sympathy was shifting towards the diggers.
And what about Peter Lalor? He was injured, right?
Badly. Shot in the left shoulder during the fight. He had to have his arm amputated. Doctors Doyle and Stewart did the surgery, assisted by others.
And there was a reward out for him.
A big one. 200 pounds. A fortune then. But he stayed hidden, likely helped by supporters, until a general amnesty was declared in March 1855.
And then, this is the really incredible part, isn't it? His later career.
It's astonishing. Lalor, the rebel leader with the price on his head, goes into politics, gets elected to Parliament, representing Ballarat of all places.
The very place he led the uprising.
Exactly. He serves as a government minister in 2 administrations, and then for 7 years, he's the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly.
From insurgent to Speaker of the House, that's quite a journey.
A remarkable transformation. And apparently he later twice refused to accept the highest imperial honor of a British knighthood. Staying true to his roots, perhaps. It just shows how quickly things can change, how a rebel can become a statesman in the public eye.
So the stockade directly caused major changes.
Absolutely. Significant reforms followed. The hated license fee was abolished. Big electoral changes gave minors representation in the Legislative Council.
So they got their representation.
They did. A commission of inquiry was set up, too. Although one source we looked at, the Ballarat delegates, they argued that Commissioner Reed tried to preempt the inquiry by crushing the diggers first, those 500 scoundrels he complained about.
So maybe the commission wasn't entirely impartial.
Well, the pressure for reform was undeniable. Regardless of the commission's internal dynamics, change had to happen.
And the legacy goes beyond politics, doesn't it? It left a cultural mark.
Definitely. The Eureka the surviving fragments of it is now a centerpiece at the Museum of Australian Democracy at Eureka, a really powerful symbol.
And memorials.
Yes, memorials were put up for both the soldiers and the diggers, acknowledging the loss on both sides. And you can visit Sovereign Hill in Ballarat today, that open-air museum. They have a sound and light show, Blood Under the Southern Cross, about Eureka.
It's important to remember the context, too, the world these people lived in just before Eureka. That lady's travelogue you mentioned, isn't it, Clacy?
Yes, Mrs. Charles Clacy's A Lady's Visit to the Gold Diggings of Australia in 1852-53. It paints such a vivid picture of the time, just a year or two before the stockade.
What did she describe?
Melbourne streets teeming with this chaotic mix of people, Chinamen with pigtails, Aborigines with a solitary blanket, Vandemonian pickpockets. Gives you a sense of the sheer diversity and, well, instability.
And the danger.
Oh, yeah. She casually notes, revolvers were cracking in all directions until daybreak. Her phrase, a pleasant idea of the state of society, is dripping with irony. It hints at that undercurrent of lawlessness.
And life was hard, right? Even getting to the goldfields.
Incredibly hard. She talks about the terrible travel, the mud and swamp, scarcity of labor, sky-high prices for food in Melbourne, these huge cities of tents where people were half perishing for want of food with no place of shelter.
Puts the diggers' desperation into perspective. They weren't just fighting for a principle, they were fighting for survival in many ways.
Absolutely. And she saw this grim advertisement in Melbourne. A skull with a bullet hole, a revolver, some gold nuggets, and a sign. You err in time.
What does that mean?
A blunt warning to lucky diggers. Sell your gold quickly or risk getting robbed and murdered. It tells you just how dangerous and unequal that society was.
She also mentions a personal story, doesn't she? About an orphan girl.
Yes, this really human touch. An energetic, unselfish orphan girl trying to make a living selling veils and candles. Her family had come seeking fortune, failed, the father was ruined, the mother died from hardship. It's a reminder of the personal tragedies behind the big historical events.
So bringing it all together, Eureka wasn't just a simple riot.
Not at all. It was this complex collision. Individual dreams, yes, but also systemic injustice and this emerging sense of a distinct Australian identity. It forced major reforms and became this enduring symbol.
A symbol of democratic struggle. The idea that ordinary people could demand a fair go.
Precisely. This deep dive really shows how these moments of intense conflict can force a society to look at itself, its values, its contradictions.
And how the actions of people dismissed at the time as vagabonds or rowdy mobs
Can fundamentally change the course of history, redefine a nation even.
So thinking about all this, what's the takeaway for you, our listener?
Well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other moments in history may be dismissed as minor incidents or local disturbances at the time?
Might actually hold the seeds of really profound change.
Exactly. Like Eureka did for Australia. Maybe real change often starts in those overlooked corners, with the people society tries to ignore.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Eureka Stockade.
We hope you feel a bit more informed.
And maybe inspired to look a little closer at the events, big and small, that shape our world.